far as Section 4 is concerned, you do have, I believe, electrostatic precipitator and hopper level detectors. Is this true? Okay, upon completion of this module, you should be able to describe a hopper level detector. You should be able to calibrate the meter and detector, operate it, identify source containment. The transmitter should be able to identify them. Ah, that's what that is. And identify the detector assembly or the receiver. Okay, let's see what we have here. Ah, okay, we have a couple that we can use. Okay, now this is not for the level one. This is one of your density gauges here, but it gave us a fairly nice cross-sectional view of the housing. Okay, not everybody can make this out. This little item right here is your source. Okay, you can follow that arrow down. You have yourself a little source, and they are quite small. And you'll notice that it's completely surrounded on all sides and in back, and most of the front of it, that's all lead. But there is a little opening in there, like a barrel, like a gun barrel. And this is the aiming device. It's called a collimator. Okay, it blocks out the rays that are going off in any direction except horizontal, directly horizontal. Okay, once past there, sure, any ray that was just slightly off from horizontal, but not so much so that it ran into the lead in the collimator area, once it gets out here, sure, it'll continue on that slight, not quite horizontal path. That's why you get some spreading. See how the beam is spreading there? Okay, and the detector is over here on the other side of the process piping. Okay, you have a shutter device. Okay, you have a shutter handle. Now, most of the ones for like the hoppers and so forth have a remote mechanism to close and open the shutter, seeing as the shutter is considerably overhead. Okay, in any event, no matter how you operate it, there's a shutter block. When it's open, the block is out of the way, and the beam is passing through the piping, or the bin, or the hopper, or the chute, or whatever it's passing through. When you close it, this thing swivels into place. And now you have your inch or two of lead, which is the shutter block, into place, and that should block off all the radiation that would normally be going in that direction. Well, maybe not all of it, but most of it. So much so that no matter where you were to take a meter and measure within a foot from any place in here, when that block is in place, in other words, the shutter is off, you should not read more than 2 MR per hour. Okay, that's how they've been designed, that's how they've been built, that's how they've been checked out when they were initially installed, so on and so forth. If you get more than 2 MR per hour, then you're seeing something unusual, and maybe it would be worth some additional investigation. Okay, I mean, if you saw something like at a foot, you're getting 5. I mean, that's considerably different than 2. And something must be happening. Maybe can't give you any maybes. I don't know what would be happening. This is where you would do your job, do some investigation as to what was going on. What was that? Vision? Okay, so do we have any questions as to how these things are basically set up? Now, the ones that have the hoppers, so you've got one source and you got 2 hoppers being checked, basically you just have this barrel on both sides of that source. See, from that source, it doesn't matter whether you're north, south, east, west, or where you are in relation to that source. It is giving off the same amount of radiation intensity in all compass directions, all the way around, above and below it, and so forth. That's why you have lead completely surrounding it. So if you cut out 2 holes, you make 2 barrels, one on either side, you're going to get the same amount of exposure at a foot on this side as you do on that side. I mean, they could have actually done it so you had holes coming up the top and down the bottom if you had hoppers or something else situated like that. But anyway, with your hopper system, we have an even number of hoppers. They use a single source, 2 barrels, 2 detectors. Okay? Next slide, please. That one's an even better picture, but we will go to the next one so you don't have to strain your eyes. Okay, now this is at Goudey. This is what their, boy, isn't it, that looks fairly clean for an old plant. The reason why is this wasn't in operation. And I think they had come in with a big vacuum or something earlier. They knew we were coming to take some pictures. Okay, let's go through a few of these. And okay, that's their remote shutter switch. It has a key interlock system. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay, they have the Level Art 1500 system. I don't believe you have the Level Art 1500. They can operate as many as 16 units from a single panel like this. And you can see all the different keys and so forth. That's within, is that a hopper room? Okay, it's in with all the hoppers. It's right at the door, the access to the area. That's where that is. Is that an on-off switch for that? Is there an on-off switch for that? What do you, well, it's one of the keys in the multiple. They have like 7 steps of moving keys around because they have to turn off the precipitator up top and everything else before they can ever open the manway down at the hopper level. Okay. Step by step. Yes, it takes a while between the keys and the tagging. It's a process. It takes a while to do. Okay, next slide. So that you know what it looks like both front and back. And up close. So I noticed that some of them you have access ways to get up to there. You have platforms. So this is what it would look like up close. This is the detector part of it, or the receiver. Okay? All those sources before are the transmitters. These are the receivers. Let's try another one. Okay, that's more what they look like. Okay, entrance to their hopper room. They have their sign up there. Caution radiation area. Now the thing is what we have to stress to everybody that's working is that all those things are well up off the floor. All the sources are well off the floor. In order to get up to them or the detectors, and you got to understand now the beam is passing through the hopper and the detector, there's, you know, that field is going to hit more than just the detector. It's going to be like a circular field, and the detector will be in the dead center of it. But it's going to be maybe 3 or 4 MR per hour, okay, all around that detector. But it's still, you know, 20 feet off the floor. So they have to do something in order to get themselves involved with the sources or with the radiation exposure, okay? This is warning them, just reminding them that they're in there. We'll show those pictures. I would assume in your classes you may show some of these pictures and say, you know, that's what it looks like, and it's overhead. It's 15, 20 feet off the floor. So before you grab a ladder and start climbing up there, especially if you're going to putz around with right near or with one of those OMART devices, or in this case also Tex Nuclear, give you guys a call. So you can go and just check it out and make sure that there's no unnecessary or unusual levels or whatever. Okay, let's take another. Now this is in a hopper room that was operating, and this is maybe more what we should be showing them, okay? These have not been cleaned up. Let's try another one. Because of the amount of coal dust and fly ash or whatever that settles out on these things, when you do your every 6-month inventory, I'm going to suggest, obviously it's not necessary, but it might be an idea to wipe the thing down a little bit just so that the warning label is clearly visible, okay, and the information tag. Otherwise, after a while, they just look like a gray lump. And, well, next slide. There's a gray lump for you. Next. Okay, now that's a single unit, okay, because I had an odd number of rows of hoppers. Excuse me, so instead of having a double barrel one, we just have a single one. Let's keep on going. Close up. Okay, that's just the receiver on the other side. Now, how many monitors can you pick out in this picture? How many detectors or receivers can you pick out in this picture? I thought so. Next slide. So that's what they're going to see when they go walking in and they look up. I mean, it took a while to find these, and also took a while to get yourself positioned to get any kind of a clear picture, okay, unobstructed picture. But when you walk in and you look up, all you see is, you know, piping everywhere, and yet you know, rumor has it that there's radioactive sources in there somewhere. I really think it's better for them to know what they look like and where they are than for them to be wondering where they are. Man fears what he doesn't understand. Okay, this is again Goudey. This is their precipitator. I guess those are the manways to get into them. And you can see that they also have those key interlocks. Let's take the next. All right, this is the heart. This is the control panel of their Level Art 1500. This is where they get their information. You see the panel of red lights there? Okay, so with just a quick glance, they can tell what's going on. The rate at which these lights blink or don't blink or whatever's going on with the lights tells them something. There's 4 different modes that those lights can be in. Okay, let's open up that box and take a look at the inside. Okay, this is the way they're able to calibrate and everything. They have a setup and check mode and so on. They can select any of the 16 channels. But again, you don't have this particular system, correct? Okay, let's take another. If you open it up further, you see the guts of it. One more time. And this is part of the annunciator panel in the control room. That is tied in with the hoppers and the precipitators. Okay, let's try one more. I think now we're about... Okay, you do have Level Art do you have them for your hoppers, or are those all Texas Nuke for the hoppers? Okay, well then let's take a look at some of your techs. Anyway, what we have here is, this looks like a single barrel. No, I guess there's a barrel on that side too. But this is your Texas nuclear units, just like the OMART units, except you use, or they use, I should say, aluminum shrouds so that personnel cannot get involved with the beam. Okay, the other ones, the OMART use steel, but they use a narrower tube. You use a much wider aluminum. I'm not sure why, it's just a little different design, that's all. Okay, let's try the next one. Now that looks like a single. Okay, and you can see how the cable runs up from your remote actuator, okay, remote shutter device, runs up to there. Although this looks to me like a place for filling coal, pulverized coal chute or some darn thing. Coal sampler. That's what, before or after it's pulverized, or before? Okay. And you can see it gets fairly dirty in there, and I believe that's your monitor right there. Let's try the next picture. Detector on the other side. See, it's all getting loaded up pretty much with the coal. Let's try the next one. I believe it's just another angle of the same thing. Okay, of the detector. So let's try another one. Okay, does everybody recognize this in your facility? I know. Yeah, there's a railing, a stair that goes up right here. You can walk around and you get to this. Okay, I believe that the gauge is right there, and it's got your safety, your warning sign right there. So let's move one more. I think we get a little better picture. Well, anyway, you see what the caution tag looks like. It does have the... Could you focus that just a little bit? Or is it focused? Ah, I guess it is. Okay, it was. Source holder, isotope, serial number, the date of manufacture, and so forth. Number of millicuries, right. Now you can see how it's a density gauge. This is the source is on this side, and the detector is on that side. And anyway, it works pretty well. Next one. We can put them in any situation. Can be horizontal. Doesn't have to be always vertical. Let's try the next one. And of course, they're everywhere. We then climbed down, what's this, a sludge pump area or some darn thing? Thickener? Well, we went down into there. It was great fun. Let's try another shot. We'll see if we... Ah, yes. Dense Art 3000 series. Again, the source holder, isotope, serial number, Curie content, so on and so forth. And I see the radiation area sign above it. Let's try the next one. I think we have one from further back, yeah. And the next one. Now this is back in the main building, and I remember spotting one of these. I don't know why just one, but one of these had like 2 or 3 signs from different directions as you approached it. Let's try another shot. That's from the other side. I don't know why, just one. Is there only one like that?
6.
There's only one that was posted that I know of. Yeah.
2 others are missing tonight.
Now, you know, the question comes up, just how necessary are the signs? Because, in fact, it's not really a radiation area at a foot away. Okay? Because they are designed for 2 MR per hour at a foot. Sure, right up against it, you may very well have a radiation area within that, inside that foot. But the way the definition works is that an area within a foot is not considered exposure to the whole body. It's not considered whole body exposure. It would be considered what they call a hot spot. Okay? And that gives us some leeway in the nuclear power game, okay, of health physics in the plant. Again, I think the basic idea behind having that sign is just to alert the people not to hang around that area. If you have no reason to be there, why be there? You know, might as well lean up against something else 10 feet away, or go to sleep, whatever you're looking to do. That is not the place to do it. Okay. Let's try the next one. It looks very similar to one we've already seen. Let's try it. Okay, let's try again. Now, is this in the coal room again? It's not the sampler. It's where you have, I think there's like 5 or 6 of these things that feed. Tripper gallery. Pretty sure that's where this was. Does this look familiar? Huh? Okay, this was, you had a tour like the day before or the week before, and from what I was told, Mike was telling me you had gone around and cleaned up the place considerably for this tour, and we were still getting some of the benefits of that. Okay, let's try another one. Coal chute. Okay, and this up here, where is the source itself, the monitor? Right there. Okay, I think we take a pic. Next slide, I think, shows what it looks like down below. Is this correct? And it's down here that you're actually able to actuate the shutter? Okay, let's take another picture. We have a caution sign here. It was nice. Okay. Looks to me like that runs up so it can control the shutter up top. So something to do with right here.
Rotates the whole thing. Rotates it against that block.
Yeah. Rotate. Rotates the whole unit. Sounds good. That's sea coal. That's using that. What source does sea coal use? Radium-226. Okay. 10. Wait, what was that? 10 what? 10 millicuries. Okay. Let's try the next slide. See what we got here. Okay. I think that's about it for the slides. What we need to do now, we could probably hit the lights. This is where we get into Section 5. Section 4 was pretty much your level detectors. Section 5 gets into your density gauges and your coal flow detectors. Okay, now ionization is the whole means by which these detectors operate. Remember we mentioned the term ionization before? Does anybody understand how those detector tubes operate? I figure a couple of you people on INC probably do. The tube is generally cylindrical in nature, okay? And there'll be, it's under a slight voltage. You have a tube, which I believe is the anode, in the middle, and the whole outer wall is the cathode. It's filled with gas, okay? And it's put under a slight potential, voltage potential. Now, when the ionizing radiation comes in, remember it creates ion pairs? The negative ions that are created, electrons, go in towards the anode or the tube in the middle, whereas the large positive atoms that are left over, they have a positive charge, start migrating to the outer wall. Well, in doing this, they create what is called an avalanche because they run into other atoms, and they can cause additional ionization. Well, when the tube finally finishes doing all its ionization, it gives out a pulse. Now, we can electronically play with this pulse and make it do any number of things that we want it to. We can record the individual pulses. We can record when enough potential has been built up so that we get a large pulse so that we can discriminate. We can integrate it over time so we have a rate. There's a number of things that can be done with this. Your GM detector that we'll be looking at a little bit later, generally it integrates over time and gives you a rate. Counts per minute, MR per hour, whatever. But it all starts out with getting these individual pulses as they are detected coming off the detector itself. So we use that ionizing part of the radiation, and it's ionizing radiation, is the means that we have to detect its presence and the level. Because you have to understand, this type of radiation you cannot see, hear, smell, taste. What's the other one? Feel. Hear, that's right. None of those. Your five senses do not operate. Okay? Do not work when it comes to ionizing radiation. That's why you have these types of detectors, these types of meters. It's all based on the ionization principle. Okay, they show you here the gauge configuration, which we showed in a couple slides back for the density gauge. And we looked at the holders, being that it's a steel superstructure loaded with lead. The ionization detector we just talked about. There's an amplifier circuit, okay. And there are standardization procedures and startup procedures. We also have on section 519 predetermined calibration technique. Now remember, before you go to adjust any control, make sure that you are familiar with this section. You'll also find it, obviously, in the manufacturer's manual. Okay, this is taken directly from it. This is 519. Okay, you have to make sure that the standardization procedure has been completed before starting calibration. That standardization procedure is just prior to this one. Okay, after analyzing the process, you have to select the lowest density as listed on your data sheet, and so forth. Always refer to the data sheet. Then you have to do suppression dial setting and so forth. If you're responsible for this, we don't need to go over in general. Not everybody in here is required to do this. If it's your job, then make sure you're familiar with how to do it. I understand you do not do build-up calculations. You can, by the way. You can determine the buildup of the process material on the internal walls. Okay, but you have to maintain very good data on a daily or at least frequent basis. And I don't believe you do that. Also, unless I'm mistaken, and I could be, okay, by the way, if I start putting out any bogus info, please let me know. I mean, this is your facility, and some of you are very familiar with these devices, okay? I don't want to pass out bad information. Do all your monitors have that circuit in it that I talked about this morning that automatically take into account for source decay?
As far as I know, only the density monitors, yeah.
Only the density, not the level ones?
I think it's actually Texas Nuclear, because they have sensitivity adjustments on them.
Okay.
So I think,
No.
I don't think it's done automatically.
No.
Okay, Omart, at least all the ones used at all the other facilities, do this automatically. They have that circuit. In that Level Art 1500 system,
Is that battery powered?
is that battery powered?
Otherwise, when you turn on power, you...
That's right. Bring it to them forward, doesn't work.
In the course of a year, it's probably had the power turned off a couple of times.
Well, there's a good question. I'm sure they must have some kind of battery backup on that. Never assume. Okay. Okay, then they get into troubleshooting procedures. You need to isolate the problem if you have an indication that there's something wrong. You have to determine whether the trouble is in the process. Okay, therefore the gauge is indicating the true process, or whether the trouble is a gauge malfunction. And they say one of the first examples of a partially filled pipe. The gauge could indicate it's low or even off scale. And major voids resulting from a partially filled pipe are usually the result of insufficient pressure in the pipe. So then you have to obviously add some more pressure and correct the situation. It's not the gauge that's at fault. It's just a problem with the process at that time. So that's the first step, obviously. We're not going to get into gauge mounting. It's been mounted. Any mounting or remounting is supposedly done under the direction of somebody who's licensed to do this type of thing. You are not. You have a general license except for C-Col monitors, okay? And that's a special case. And I forget who's named on that now. Is it Terry? Terry,
The license, I don't know.
it was somebody else.
Well, Carl Criddle.
But that's being changed.
Right, it's been changed to Terry.
Right. Okay. So I guess she would have to be present then, or somebody else who has a specific license would have to be present for a C-Col monitor to be taken from where it is and remounted somewhere else. Okay, then they go through how to do amplifier checks, source holder checks, detector checks, for gas leaks, and so forth. So this is all your troubleshooting for Texas Nuke, which is very similar to your Omart. And then your C-Col, which is section 5-2. C-Col nuclear coal monitor is designed specifically for application in central power generating stations and industrial boiler houses. Detection of coal voids, creating a downspout preceding the coal feeding mechanism. And see here, I noticed that they say gamma radiation is really X-rays, or you know, they lead you to believe in the way they write up their material that they are pretty much that they are the same thing or are totally interchangeable. Since they work the same way, I suppose it's no harm. Okay, they should give you your startup procedures, calibration procedures. They say a calibration may be done with the coal and the downspout. I know that in many of these you can calibrate without taking the unit offline. They get into your troubleshooting and so forth. So all that information is available to you. Again, I'm not going into it in any detail simply because you people are more familiar than the corporate people I had yesterday. Some of them have never even seen them, really. You know, oh, they like those pictures. You know, I figure most of you have, except for one, have gone out there and seen these things firsthand. Okay.